Rumors about people disappearing in the Alps aren't new. However, people who go missing aren't always victims of the cold weather. The fortunate ones who actually make it back tell the tale of being hunted, stalked by something as beautiful and ferocious as nature itself. It's not just extreme cold and hunger that should concern you when you're lost. There's something far more sinister lurking in those mountains. They say that the Japanese Alps are inhabited by Yuki Onna, a breathtakingly beautiful woman with piercing eyes. She has an ageless body and skin as white as snow itself. Legend has it that she feeds on the life force of humans, leaving behind a trail of empty husks, frozen solid. Locals say that nature isn't always to blame for the dozens of frozen bodies scattered across the Alps. They're the victims of Yuki Onna. If you're wondering if this is yet another story about a yokai who hunts humans and feeds on them, you're wrong. The tale of Yuki Onna is more than just a scary story about a merciless killer. She may be notorious for hunting humans over the years, but you can't just write her off as a cold-blooded monster, as after decades of manhunt, Yuki Onna fell in love with someone. I know, this raises many questions in your head, like, how's that even possible? Or, what was so special about that person? And, to tell you the truth, I don't have the answers that you seek. No one knows how or why it happened. It just did. Despite her instincts screaming at her to devour the man, she resisted. In fact, she guided the man to safety, leading him back to his village. And the time they spent together on their journey led the man to develop feelings for her too. So, when he proposed, Yuki Onna couldn't refuse. They started a new life in a small village. And here's a little fun fact for you. Yuki Onna doesn't solely rely on life energy to survive. She is capable of thriving on ordinary human food, just like the rest of us. So it wasn't that hard for her to conceal her true identity. The first few days were rough though. It wasn't easy to curb her appetite, and the cravings won't go that easy, but she somehow managed and stopped herself from going on a rampage while her husband was asleep. She would appear as an ordinary human. She would act like us, eat like us, and even do chores. So there was no reason for suspicion. Or at least, that's what she thought, because there was one thing that didn't sit right with her husband. Though Yuki Onna was beautiful and perfect in every way, she would never bathe. And the funny thing is, she wouldn't even smell bad. In fact, there would always be this subtle, beautiful scent coming from her body. Her husband didn't think much about it at first, but as days passed, he started insisting. However, it wasn't out of doubt but concern, as not bathing for so many days can affect your health. They would often argue about it, but Yuki Onna would come up with some sort of an excuse to leave the conversation midway. Things escalated one fateful night. It was very cold, as it was snowing outside, so her husband set things up for a warm bath, and this time he wouldn't take no for an answer. He even told her that he would bathe her himself if he had to, leaving no room for an excuse. Eventually, she acquiesced and left to bathe. However, she was taking way too long. Several minutes had passed, but she wasn't coming out of the bathing area. Extremely worried and left with no choice, he entered the bathing area, but there was no one there. No windows, no back doors. It was as if she vanished into thin air. He called her name, but there was no response, just silence. While he was trying to make sense of it all, his eyes caught a glimpse of the bathtub, which was partially filled with half-melted icicles.